Most people are walking around with a book inside their head and they just need somewhere to get it out. And that's where I love creative nonfiction for the first write. It's what I used. And in this video, I'm going to share the specific framework so that you can help to organize those thoughts so that when you go to continue to write the book, there's never a blank page. Your own stories become the highlight of the creative nonfiction piece. And by doing that, you learn how to find conflict in, the mundane, the light story. You don't always have to go to the toughest story that you ever learned as a human being as your first book, unless you want to. Since a book needs to have some sort of structure, some sort of theme to it, you need to find some sort of transformation that the reader is going to have. So if you're a coach, maybe it's something that you coach on. You take people from here to there. And in order to fill it with rich experiences, you need to really think about what is that transformation and how are people going to identify it. Now, I don't want you getting hung up on the word transformation. All it means is I was here, something happened, and then now I'm here. And all of the things that got to that point, they're different chapters in the book. And I'll break that down a little bit more in a bit. But first, the first exercise, and you can either write this down, put me on pause, use the chat, is to start asking yourself and brainstorming a couple of different questions. Question number 1, what challenges have I overcome in my life? Question number 2, what specific results did you get from those challenges? I know. Those are so broad. You can look at the achievements that got you from point A to point Z or whatever it was, and the framework that you teach and what you learned from it. But there's a different little art in putting together a story that has people feeling as though they're not just reading your brag book, right? And I'll get to that in a moment. So once you decide what your transformation arc will be, like, for example, Stephen King writes the book on writing, and it's a creative nonfiction. It's a memoir-ish creative nonfiction. He talks about his life. He tells a lot of personal stories in it. He's a great storyteller. And then he gives all the advice of his writer self to others, and his teacher hat comes on, and he actually was a teacher. So his teaching hat comes on and teaches the writer all the do's and don'ts and his opinions and all of that, which is fantastic. But what you find is that transformation arc, it's for the writer. It's from not being a writer to finding confidence in your writing to becoming a published author. And all the in-betweens and the watch-outs are in that book. That's a great example, and also an awesome segue into the next is finding your sentence. If you've been in any type of marketing for your business for any length of time, you know that this is a marketing strategy. And what I didn't know before I started writing is that it's used in books as well. Well, duh, you're going to have to market your book at some point. So this will help you also stay on track with your theme. So once you decide on what specific transformation that you're going to focus on, you can play around with this sentence. This book helps blank. So who do you help, right? Who is this book going to help? This is where I go off in a tangent. And if the only thing you can put in that blank is people, that's fine. Okay. If you have an ideal reader in your head, like if you're thinking, okay, I'm writing this book for so-and-so, put that person's name in there. You don't even have to share this ever, right? You can always put in people. But if you know the specificity of this person, it's going to help you map out your chapters. I'll get into that in a second. Okay, so I help this person be, do, or have, and that's like, what they're going to get. So in Stephen King, he's saying, I'm helping Albert be a writer so that And then the next part is the result that they really want. I'm making somebody up, okay? So this book helps Albert be a writer so that he can finally get that book out of his head and into someone else's hands. I don't know. Play around with that. Make it true to you, because the next part is where the chapters unfold, okay? So you're thinking about that beginner in whatever it is, the field that you teach. Say you're a YouTube coach, okay? You're a YouTube coach, you want to write your first book, and you have all these things that people, need to know about. Say you're a mom, you have a teenage daughter, and there are so many watch-outs that you want her to know, but she's not ready to hear them yet or ready to receive yet. We know what happens, right? As moms, we become a lot more resourceful after they hit their 20s and perhaps have their own kids. And then they get it. And then all of a sudden we're smart again, right? It's just the way life goes. This is where that story arc or that transformation arc turns into chapters. So in order to help Alfred be a writer so that he can finally get his book out of his head and into someone else's hands, he is going to need to know this, right? So what are all the things that, if you're a coach, what are all the things that your clients need to know? The lessons that you're going to help them overcome. If you're a YouTube coach, what are all the things that they're going to need to know and the lessons that they're all going to overcome? And try to think in 3 different categories. So you have the mindset, no matter what it is that you're doing, that you're presenting in someone else's hands through a book, especially if it's a teaching book in this creative nonfiction lens, is that you have something that you want them to learn, right? And you have your unique experience to go with it. And your mindset had to change at some point in order to, go through this motion. And so you're bringing them through this framework, this lens. So we have the mindset. Usually there's some middle ground there. So there's some actioning and then there's the momentum. That's usually the way I frame in 3 sections of a book. You have the mindset, you have the movement, so getting going, and then you have the momentum, keep going. Okay, that's kind of like a little bonus tip there. But you're going to want to list out all the things that they need to do, and that's going to build out your chapters. Now, what comes next is super important too, because then you're going to build the chapters. And what makes a really great chapter? Connection. Now, a lot of times I see this when I'm working with people one-on-one with their stories, is they come out with the lesson first. And although, that's the way we kind of work, we come out with the lesson and then we have an anecdote and then we pass it on. A creative nonfiction book gives you so much room to connect deeper with your reader through your story. So what I like to do is in my chapters, I like to start with a story. Instead of stating at the top of my page that this is what we're going to learn, I go right into the action. I'll give you an example from my current work in progress. Give me a second. I just got to find it. Okay, so I just found it. What are we doing today? The nurse asks as she wheels me into the operating room. First line of the chapter. We're jumping into the action. I'm not starting with the lesson on that. It's just action. And we're jumping into story. Now, in that story, the reader gets to come with me instead of being talked at. And I think that this is where creative nonfiction really helps you to really polish up your storytelling skills and your connection skills. Because a lot of times I think in this space, and I'm finding this a lot on social media, is that we're talking at each other instead of creating conversations. And conversations are better had when you feel connected to the person. So if you're writing this book as a business asset or something as a coach that you can hand your clients after a speaking gig, it's really easy for people to identify themselves in your transformation and let them identify themselves. A lot of creative nonfiction books the chapters are this way. They're structured this way. They go story, backup or proof, and then lesson, right? Or takeaway or something that you want the reader to do so that they can get themselves in action. And that's where I recommend that you start. Now, keep in mind that anything that you get as backup or proof, if you decide to take this book to publishing, you have to provide those references. I like this simple chapter framework because it allows you to get everything out of your head and onto that page in all of your identities, which sounds a little weird, but it's true. You get to get the story out. You get to get the persona of, I'm looking for proof. Somebody come in and back me up. So I know what I'm talking about because I know that I've studied this and I'm bringing in the studies that I've studied to back me up. It's not just me saying this. And then the third thing is, now Coach Karen is going to show up and now I need to tell you what to do so that you can get this transformation along with me. Now, I'm not saying that all of this stays and goes to print, but all of this needs to get out of your head so that you have something to work with later. And this is the easiest way to get it all out. Once you get the whole manuscript done, you can then decide, should I go find an agent? Should I get some writer helper friends to help me out? Like, what do I do with all this? Because the idea has completely transpired from your head onto the page. That's the first milestone, is actually getting it out of your head and onto the page. What a lot of people don't talk about is all of the work that goes beyond that are all mini projects within itself, which is what I dedicate this channel to. If we haven't met before, my name is Karen. I'm an indie author, a story coach, communications mentor, and I can definitely help you get started and get that book out of your head and onto the paper. But here's the thing that most people think, that you're just going to have all of this time open up or be able to settle into this great cozy writing. And that's not the case. If you're anything like me, you have a part-time job, maybe a full-time job, and you're doing this because it just won't shut up. It's this quiet calling that you have, or that you absolutely know that it's really going to help be an asset to what you already have. Play with it. It's a lot like deciding that you're going to run a marathon. It's going to take time. It's going to take sweat. It's going to take money and resources. So it's really important to really know and be centered as why you're writing the book beyond fame, beyond money, because there are a lot of steps that go from actually getting it out of your head and getting it into other people's hands. Now, I don't want to scare you away from it, but I also don't want to sugarcoat it. Lots of people look for a faster path to get somewhere. And I think if we spent a lot less time looking for the fast track and just doing the work, I think we would get there faster. But as I already explained, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So what I like to set up is just to start with just a basic 30-minute writing routine. Because right now, you're basically mining your brain to get all of that stuff out of your head. And all you need is 30 minutes of quiet time and a really good structure. Everything I talked about today on this video, I go a lot deeper into each specific task in this playlist that I'm going to link up for you down below. It's called Outlining Made Easy. You have to get something complete before you know what you're going to do with it. And time is going to pass anyways. So if you approach this as, 30 minutes a day for 2 weeks, for 4 weeks, however long it takes, and then you have the bones there, you'll at least be able to decide if you want to run with this. Because it is a journey. I'll be with you every step of the way. That playlist that I mentioned, I'll have it linked up as the next video. Thank you for hanging out with me. I want to know what you're writing. Let me know, hit me up in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.